I've been sitting here for like 5-10 minutes trying to think about the right words to express how I feel towards this episode, but honestly, it's just perfect. Like, they have smashed this adaptation out of the park, and it's only episode 2. I mean, it's still very early, but I can't help but feel so excited, so in love with all of the passion and talent and hard work that they're putting into these episodes. And they're going out of their way, they're going above and beyond just to make everything so beautiful, so identifiable, continuing to pay close respect and homage to Fujimoto's authenticity, but also stylizing it within their own vision, giving Chainsaw Man a new perspective that isn't too far away from its original, so it feels invigorating. At this point, there's going to be a percentage of you that just thinks that I'm a Chainsaw Man stan, that I will never talk about the bad things about it, this, that, the third, right? And that's okay. I understand. Trust me, I would love to talk about negatives. I love providing some sort of constructive criticism that doesn't seem all too hateful. I'm very honest with how I feel about things, but there was nothing within this episode that I hated. And sure, a lot of that's going to be blinded by my infatuation with Chainsaw Man as a story, as a manga, as an IP, as content, but I'm just genuinely so impressed with how well they've done this. As much as I love the first episode, it gives you one side of Fujimoto's authenticity. Episode 2 is the other, the downtime, these slower, comedy-filled moments that have this very interesting contrast between them, and how it drastically shifts from intensity and anxiety-driven moments to these quirky, comedic ones. Finding that transition is very difficult, but if it's nailed or perfected, you get something like this episode that can balance intensity and gore and this dark, depressing feeling and atmosphere that's being built with its music and its animation and its voice work and color palette, then perfectly hard cuts into upbeat comedy and quirky humor. If you were concerned or worried by any means, this episode shows you everything that you need to be confident in how you feel now, how they like to handle all of this stuff. I want to start with the voice work. I think it's exceptional. I think any sort of worry that you had for maybe Makima, maybe Denji, maybe even Aki and Power, no more. You will feel very, very confident with their performances and how much range that they actually give. And it's very purposeful too, right? I don't think anyone had issues with Power, and she nails it out of the park with Power. Denji being a brand new voice actor, literally his first major work, but it was such an outstanding choice. The versatility in Denji, the jumping between different emotions, the barking, the choppy phrases, the grunts and moans, and all these little things that build Denji's character and really showcase how young mentally and emotionally he is. This is someone that has had a very rough life growing up and was alone for a lot of it, fighting devils and being manipulated. So seeing that range come out within the voice work, especially paired with Aki and Makima and Power, is honestly spot on. I know a lot of people had concerns with Makima, probably not anymore. The consistency is what makes Makima scary. That her tone never changes, it never wavers, she never gets excited, she never really shows emotion like that, and her voice stays scarily consistent. This is exactly how I personally imagined her character to act and sound. I didn't expect this massive vocal range. It's like a high-pitched monotone. I think the most surprising one, to be honest, is Aki. I think a lot of people thought that his voice sounded way too deep, and watching the episode, I see the vision. Later on down the line, Aki has a lot of vulnerable moments, a lot of range, a lot of character building, beefing up his relationship with Denji and Power. Where his voice is now for where his character is, I think is a great match. And you'll see that flexibility hopefully within the future really shine for his character. Mind you, as well, Aki's VA is also very inexperienced. He's only done background roles, so this is his first major role as well. I think it's great. I think it suits him really well. Voice acting aside, visuals. I was very curious on how they would handle these slower moments. Of course, 2D, CGI, rotoscoping, every crazy technique that you can think of is going to go into those high octane action moments, but how would they handle character interactions? How would they handle environment shots? The nuanced facial expressions that Fujimoto is known for within his works. They nail this too. Really, really well actually. It's honestly impressive and something that you can continuously gush over how much respect and homage that they're paying to Fujimoto. Like, they're going an extra mile, an extra 10 steps to really do things the way that he would like them. And I believe he is overseeing this whole adaptation and giving pointers and tips and things that he would like to change. That's why a fight was cut from this episode, which honestly makes a lot of sense. That fight didn't really give much value. It showed off a little bit here and there and gave more character interaction and more identity building, but leaving it out, I think, fixed the pacing tremendously for this episode. All of this stuff that you're missing out on is then rerouted back into these long lingering conversations, and there's a lot of them. I assume this was Fujimoto's choice. If not, regardless, it was a good one, in my opinion. They do a phenomenal job with facial expressions, a phenomenal job with bodily movement, small, minuscule, quirky things that each character does, especially when Power comes in that's so explosive. She steals a lot of the scene, but I think Denji with his facial expression is really nice. The flickering of eyes, or like his mouth tweaking certain ways, or how he kind of upholds himself bodily wise is really nice. And yes, these are things that people aren't really going to gush over, but again, they're paying so much attention to how Fujimoto done it within the manga and replicating it efficiently and fluidly within the anime. So much so that they've gone the next step in framing episodes in very specific ways. You probably won't notice it at first, but there's certain shots that are framed very purposefully where things will be obstructed so you can pay attention to the center or the target that's in vision, or something that's zoomed out to frame the subject more kind of openly. Like there's one shot that's very obvious where Aki is leading Denji out of the room and you see a very symbolic painting within the background. I'm not going to explain what that actually means because you will get it much later on, but it's stuff like that. Nothing over the top, but I personally appreciate these finer details, and if I do notice them, I'll pick them up because there's going to be an endless amount and I am going to miss some. I just tend to appreciate them wholeheartedly. Another little example is the opposite of that Aki situation, is that they zoom in a lot of the time for Makima's character, and it's to make her more overpowering, overwhelming. She is that type of character. She is that individual, and it undoubtedly works. She takes up so much of the screen a lot of different times and it feels suffocating, overbearing even. It's perfect for her character. But going from visuals, I want to talk about tonal structure. And this usually consists of a lot of different things, but the ones I want to mention is the music choice and the pacing. Like I said at the beginning, originally I was worried about this because jumping between these dark, depressing moments to these more comedic, upbeat moments would feel sometimes pretty jarring. So I was very optimistic on how they would approach this transition. Again, they nailed it really well. And a way they do this is by kind of jump cutting the music in a sense. So I love the type of music that they're going for that's very subtle. It's not too piercing, but it's noticeable enough that raises your heartbeat. It raises the intensity of the scene extremely well. And the scene itself may not even be intense. It might just be two characters talking in a pretty moody way, and you'll have that music bumping in the background. Because it lingers as well, it's not like a super upbeat tempo, the scenes feel a lot more suffocating because a lot of the character interactions and the shot between this episode are very drawn out. It takes its time to sit within the moment. I love that. It draws so much attention from you to this character, to that character, to this conversation, to this feeling or emotion, and with that music, it just lures you in and you can't escape it. To let you out of this moment, they actually hard cut a lot of the time by kind of jarringly cutting off the music really quickly or fading it out quickly and then jumping to an action that a character would do and then dumping the comedic moment on top of that. They do this a lot of different ways. They kind of use it as a transition as well between scenes. I think I remember one where the sound of a truck kind of obscures the music in the background and uses it as a hard cut to hide the transition, and it feels really smooth. Before you even process the tonal shift, the comedic moment gets dumped on top of it and you're focused on that, and it kind of elevates the scene a lot more because you don't actually expect it. So for newer viewers, I would say it's going to be surprising but also energetic, alive, kind of just comes out of nowhere and you can appreciate it a lot. They do this with a lot of different things, but with how they balance the music and the pacing, everything just felt so incredibly well thought out and amazing, to be honest. I'm still sitting here gushing over it 20 minutes later. A lot of you are going to be sick of me saying how great this episode was, but I just really enjoyed it. I think a lot of you will too. I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but I think to full stop this conversation, there's nothing necessarily revolutionary or groundbreaking or something that you've never seen before. I think it's more so just the effort or passion going into this creation seems very visible. If you enjoy or appreciate the smaller things within Chainsaw Man's manga, you'll probably really enjoy or appreciate how they overall constructed this episode. It makes me very confident and excited for the future of this season, how much they're going to show, how big and crazy they're going to get, because you know there's going to be 1, 2, maybe even a handful of episodes that are going to go above and beyond animation-wise to really hit it out of the park as far as it can, and everything just feels so easy to fall in love with, whether you're a fan of Chainsaw Man or a fan of Fujimoto's works, or whether you're someone that's new to the story. I think it's going to take some time for that feeling to set in, for the honeymoon period to wear off, but so far I think people are enjoying themselves, and hopefully me praising it so much doesn't put people off. If it did, my apologies. It's not too often I get to express how genuinely happy I feel about seeing a really great anime adaptation for a manga that I wholeheartedly love and have been following since day one. But that is more than enough from me. Please let me know how you feel. feel. I'd love to hear your thoughts.